Thank you, Mr. Mujibur Rahman, all our distinguished panelists on the stage, ladies and gentlemen. In a world today where the role of youth is very important and everyone appreciates that, I think it is very rarely that we come across a powerful movement of young people. And I think Solidarity's role in the last few years in Kerala, especially in development activities, like standing up to the curse of endosulfan or the Coca-Cola. If you dirty river Ganga or Yamuna or your Paryar or all rivers, the GDP grows not once, not twice, but 3 times. Let's look at it how. The Paryar river is an example. You set first the industries which are affluent industries along the banks of the river, so the GDP goes up. The river is polluted. Mesmerized by this wonderful illusion that you have been given to understand that GDP increase would mean that your well-being would also improve. And if you look at the GDP that we have been worked out this year, 8.6%. It is all statistical jugglery. It is a statistical lie. When I say this, the economists get angry with me. But let's try to understand. The high rate of GDP this year is because of the resurgence or the rebounding back of agriculture. We are told that agriculture has grown by 5.4% this year. That is why the GDP is 8.6%. Last year there was a drought, production was very low. This year the production is normal because there is no drought, and this is being taken as a growth. Where there is no growth, if there was last year was normal year, let us presume there was no drought last year, the production would have been of the same level that we have today, which means the agriculture production growth would have been just 1%. That would mean that the total GDP of the country would have been around 6%. So to make fool of us, the economists have worked it such a manner that it looks to you 8.6% India is growing. You will be surprised that the production this year in agriculture is less than the production achieved 2 years back. Where is the growth that we talk about? But nobody ever asks a question. Because you don't ask a question, you never get the right reply. And I think that is where the younger people and the people who are enlightened and part of the elite fail to comprehend what is going wrong with this society. If you look at India's GDP, Arjun Sen Gupta committee had said that 77% of India's population, which is 84 crore people are able to spend only 20 rupees a day. And yet our income now, average income is 50,000 rupees. What is not known is that the economic wealth of just 36 families in India, if you compile their entire economic wealth, it is equivalent to 1/3 of the GDP. If these 36 people were to migrate to Pakistan or to Saudi Arabia or to America, India's GDP will come crashing down. But then there is a kind of a race that is happening. If you look into the media, it tells you how that one person was from a poor family, he became a millionaire. The other person was also from a poor family, he became a film star. So you can also become a film star. So in this rat race, everyone is running around becoming a celebrity or becoming a millionaire. And that, I think, is something we must detest, we must not fall prey into. But the way the media has tried to give an impression, because media is also bought by the same groups, is to give you an illusion that there is growth. So everyone can become, if you buy a product, there is a chance of getting a gold coin. Out of the millions of, cartons that are sold, one person will get the gold coin. So everyone is excited about buying that product to get that gold coin. If that is development, I think, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to start rethinking. Why do we start to rethinking is, because even in a country like America, every Indian wants to go to America. We may criticize America, but if you go to the American embassy in the morning, people are queuing up to get a visa to go to America. In America, 400 people's combined wealth is equivalent to what their half the population, which is about 150 million people. The total combined wealth of 150 million people is into the hands of just 400 people. And then the economic growth that we see is all fantastic. We have never questioned, is America broke? No. America has tons and tons of money which is giving to the corporates, which is giving to the rich people who don't deserve it. India also has tons of money. India is not a broke country. It is giving to those who don't deserve it, and we as citizens have never questioned that. The annual budget, which was presented on 20th of February this year, we forget the total budget is about 12 lakh crores of expenditure. You will be surprised that since 2005-2006, in the last 5 years, India has actually given a subsidy by way of tax exemptions, income tax, corporate tax and so on, to the handful of rich people to the tune of 21 lakh crore rupees. 21 lakh crore rupees have been given to the corporates by way of tax exemption, which is a subsidy. 21 lakh crores is equal to 2 budgets of this country. Is there a dearth of money? But when the government has to provide money for right to food or for any other farmers program, it says we have no money. But when it has to give exemptions to the corporates, it's all the money in the world. Is that the development paradigm we work? Is that the development model that you and me require? I'm sure that is what the solidarity movement is talking about, that we need a kind of a holistic pattern of development where the small and the poor and the rich also are able to vibe together. And that is what the struggle should be. But for that we need to understand where things are going wrong. The first and foremost task, ladies and gentlemen, is to understand where things are going wrong. The economic mess that has been created is because we as citizens have failed to question. And once you fail to question, they will go on doing the mischief that they have been doing. I think that is the challenge for any younger society, to stand up and ask the right question. Now let us look at the most important sector which is deriving the economic growth that we talk about. We are today in a world where we are being told, you don't have time, so we need processed food. I'm not against processed food. We are being told that we waste 40% of our fruits and vegetables, so they need to be processed. So we need to stop wastage. We accept that. So we buy all those products, we build up all those subsidies to those sectors to come up with food processing. What is the food processing industry doing in India is actually what has been done in America and Europe. So you bring in the same kinds of junk foods and carbohydrated drinks and so on into the country, which are basically unhealthy. Your opposition to Coca-Cola was remarkable. It set a global trend. But I think where we all fail is we don't realize that why is Coca-Cola promoted when we all know Coca-Cola is unhealthy and harmful for health? Why is it that the governments accept Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola or all those other drinks, knowing very well that they are unhealthy and will destroy your health or would harm your health? Because every time you buy a bottle of Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, the GDP goes up. So Prime Minister is happy, Montek Singh Ahluwalia is happy, Indra Nu is happy, and you are also happy because Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. That is the problem of the society. We have been made to believe that whatever is being told to us is the gospel truth. And what does things like Coca-Cola or junk food do to your body? They make you sick. We definitely have a lifespan which has improved over the last few decades. But don't we realize that every second man in our family today is sick? Tell me one family where people are not living on medicines. Somebody is suffering with diabetes, somebody is suffering from tuberculosis, somebody is suffering from heart, somebody from cholesterol, and whatever you see, and there are medicines for that. You cannot survive if you don't take 3-4 medicines every day. This is happening in every household. Now look at the combination. Try to understand how it operates. The food industry globally is producing the food which is basically unhealthy. This basically is harmful. It comes very nice in those packages. You believe that all these packages are wonderful, so the thing inside should also be very good. Not every product, but most of the products are like that. So you take those foods, you become unhealthy. So once you become unhealthy, in any case, when you are buying those foods, the GDP goes up. The more you buy the processed food, the more will be the addition to GDP. Then you fall sick. So you go to the medicines, pharmaceuticals and so on. So we have seen the medicine industry and the pharmaceutical industry growing all over the world. GDP grows up. Once the pharmaceutical industry grows, insurance industry also grows. So look at the combination: food, medicine and insurance. You will be surprised that the insurance industry actually is investing more in the food industry today. Why should insurance companies be investing in the food stocks? $2 billion of investment has been made into the stocks of the food companies. Because the more harmful food you create, more medicine you will require and more insurance you will require. So basically the world is being run by three kinds of companies: food companies, pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, and this is how the GDP goes up. And we somehow believe this is a wonderful model. I think one medical doctor, Dr. Kabra, and I never forget quoting him, he said the right statement. He said, actually, we have learned the art of keeping a sick population alive for long. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a sick population. We are a sick population. We are alive because we all live on medicines now. And we have failed to understand that the reason behind all this is our quest or our desperation to increase the GDP. Somehow we never understood what is GDP. So the more the Jersey cows come into India and you try to improve that milk production, the more the GDP will go up. But the more you try to raise your own traditional seeds, if you don't buy genetically modified seeds, the GDP will not go up. So Prime Minister has an incentive, the governments have an incentive because they want GDP to go up. So any kind of seed, whether it is bad or good, is sold, which means the GDP will go up. So I think we need to be careful and watchful of what GDP can do, what havoc it has created all over the world. And no wonder, when the system collapsed in 2008, the economic model had collapsed. To revive that economic model, the world has pumped in $20 trillion of money, $20 trillion of bailout. $20 trillion, ladies and gentlemen, I did an estimate. If you had $2 trillion, you could have wiped out hunger and disease from the face of the planet. The world has no money for removing hunger and disease from the planet. $2 trillion, nobody has money. But when you have to give it to the corporate and the corrupt and the rich, they pumped in $20 trillion in the name of economic revival package. That is not the development that we should be talking about. And that, I suppose, is the challenge which groups like Solidarity have to flare up, have to make the country understand. We are also now moving on to a stage where we are being told, you don't have to produce much. We are being told it is not economical to produce food within the country. We are being told that, farmers should be displaced, pushed out of agriculture into the urban areas. Now let me explain to you or make you understand what is going to mean by this food insecurity to the kind of solidarity movement that you are talking about. I think the best way to do is to compare the two biggest democracies, America and India. 60 years back, when India got its independence, 64 years back, the number of people in America who were involved with agriculture were 10% of the population. In India at that time, 80% of our population was involved with farming. The average farm size in America at that time was 50 hectares. In India, it was 4 hectares. Today, the number of farmers in America has come down to 700,000. Yani 7 lakh people are on the farm today in America. There are 70 lakh people in the jail or in bail or on parole in America at any given time. Only 7 lakh people left on the farm. In India, we have 60 crore people who are dependent upon agriculture. This is double the population of that of America. And we are being told that if India has to grow, it has to follow the model of development from America or European Union, which means we must offload or remove these farmers from agriculture. So the government of India is trying to push farmers out of agriculture. Kerala is an example how you pushed farmers out of agriculture. Today Kerala is a food insecure state because of your own wrong development policies, and I am sure the new Kerala Development Forum would like to address these policies again. 60 crore people have to be displaced in this country. In 1996, the World Bank in a report said, and I quote, it said by the year 2015, which is close by now, the number of people who will be migrating from the rural to the urban areas in India will be equal to twice the combined population of UK, France and Germany. The combined population of UK, France and Germany is 200 million. The World Bank had said in 1996 that 400 million people would be migrating from the rural to the urban areas in India by the year 2015. 40 crore people. I thought the World Bank was issuing a warning, but I was wrong. The World Bank was actually giving a formula for moving people out of rural areas into the urban areas. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine a scenario when 40 crore people are moved out of rural areas into the urban areas? What happens? The urban areas collapse. The villages become empty. Who will then produce the food for the country? And food is the biggest weapon for any country if it wants to remain a sovereign country, sovereign nation. The moment you try to destroy your food availability or food self-sufficiency, you're actually in for trouble. Why is it that America, the argument given by our main planners in India is that the share of agriculture in countries' GDP, again GDP, has come down to now 15% or 16%. So we don't have to worry about agriculture. In America, the share of agriculture in their GDP is 4%. If the share of agriculture in the GDP is 4%, you will agree America should not bother about its agriculture. But America is, through WTO, for all these regimes, America is trying to ensure that it protects its agriculture by all means. And that is why in the last 10 years in America, farmers were given a subsidy of 12,50,000 crores. 7 lakh farmers got a subsidy of 12,50,000 crores in the last 10 years in America. In India, over 2 lakh farmers died, committed suicide in the same period. This is because the entire economic thinking is that we don't need farmers, let them die. We have to in any case push them out of agriculture. That is a problem which is also linked to Naxalism. I still remember when Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister in 2004, in one of his speeches he said 161 districts in India are affected by Naxalism. Today the number of districts which are affected by Naxalism is about 230 or more. There are about 625 districts in India. So 1/3 or 1/4 of these districts in India are already impacted by Naxalism, and this is because we destroyed the first line of defense against Naxalism, which is agriculture and rural development. This is what happens in any country. When you destroy agriculture, you will have this kind of social strife that is taking place. The more you destroy agriculture, rural development in a country like India or natural resources, you are going to compound the crisis. And I have a feeling that the group like Solidarity would try to stand up and raise these issues. We don't want a country which becomes superpower economically. We don't want India to be an economic superpower. What we actually want is everyone in India to be part of what is called a happy nation. We want a happy nation, not an economic superpower. Economic superpower can be made by only 5, 6, 7 families also. But we want a healthy nation and a happy nation. A happy nation which does not aim at GDP. People give me the examples of China. China had the GDP of 11%, 12%. Look at the Chinese leadership. They have understood the damage they have done. They have now said we will be only ensuring a 7% to 8% economic growth. They have realized the mistake. But India is still on that trajectory. We want to go on increasing GDP. And I remember some months back, I was with the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister on the banks of Narmada River. And he said, that although he is one of those sons of the Narmada River, but when it comes to development, he does not know, he is confused what development model he should follow. How can he keep the river safe? In my presentation, I said, Mr. Chief Minister, I can give you the answer. You destroy the river, your GDP will go up. And how does it matter? You will be there only for 4 years or 5 years maximum. So you can show that your GDP has gone up, let the country suffer after that. Is that the model of development we want? We need to understand what are these kinds of models. Endosulfan is something which you stood up as a state and you have given the country to follow an example. Genetically modified crops, Kerala is one state which has had the courage to stand up. Do we know what genetically modified crops do to us? We are all very excited about GM food coming to us, and the argument is that if we need to increase production, we need genetically modified food. The GM rubber controversy in Kerala is also well known. You are opposing GM rubber. We don't want the field trials to happen. Because genetically modified crops and foods are very dangerous to your health. They are very dangerous. You will never realize what has happened. There is no medical system in the world which can tell you what the alien gene or the gene from a bacteria or animal which has gone into your body can do to your body. They have not worked out a medical assay to tell you or to ever know that you can ever know that GM food is bad for your health. Now the argument given is that America is eating GM food, so what is wrong? You will be surprised that since America started eating GM food, I can't give you the correlation because nobody has done this study, but there is an indirect correlation. Diseases like heart attack, diseases like obesity, diseases like dementia have increased 80 to 90% in America. Diseases like Alzheimer's, diseases like schizophrenia have increased by 60 to 80% in America. And is there anyone can establish that there is no link between these diseases increase and the genetically modified foods? The answer is no. And that is why the president's wife, Michelle Obama, has actually launched a campaign in America to push these companies out of America, at least to ensure that the children obesity in America is reduced. So if from America all these food companies are being driven away, India is welcoming them, saying we need foreign direct investment. What a great country. So you are taking on the problem of one country, adding on to the problem of your country, because your GDP will go up. The more you eat junk food, the more you start using Thanda, Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola or whatever it is, the more you become sick. And that brings me back to the square, circular position that I explained to earlier. That is how the entire GDP is going up. Are the jobs going up? We are told that these companies, when the GDP goes up, there is a job creation. It is a flawed analysis. Nobody has even counter-checked whether it is true or not. If you remember, only recently we had a news report, 400 people, just for 400 jobs, 420 jobs, in the Indo-Tibetan border police, 2 lakh people came for interview. For 400 jobs, 2 lakh people came. Some people died when they were traveling on the train. Look at the unemployment ratio in this country. The biggest employment that the country can have is in agriculture. Agriculture is the biggest employer, 60 crore people plus 20 crore people who are dependent on it indirectly. Can't we make agriculture more profitable, more economically viable? Why is it that the farmer in India, and you will be surprised, your own farmers in Kerala are below the poverty line? The average income of a farmer in India, farming family, including 5 people plus 2 cattle, is less than rupees 2,400 rupees a day. 2,400 rupees a day is what the income of an average farming family in India is for a month. If you are a chaprasi or a government servant, the PN in the government services, you get a minimum salary of 15,000 rupees. Why can't the farmers be equated with a chaprasi at least? Why can't we ensure that the farmer income also goes to the level of chaprasi? That is what we need to do. And that is what I suppose is the challenge for this country. Make agriculture more profitable. I think what Kerala needs to do is to come up with a state farmers income commission. A state farmers income commission which gives the farmer a viable income, an assured income every month, at least equivalent to what a chaprasi gets. And you will see there will be a reverse migration. The rural areas would also prosper, and the urban areas in any case are doing what they are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, the point I am trying to make is, given this scenario that the world has seen, I would suggest that Solidarity, at least in the next 2-3 days, defines a policy on at least 1, 2, 3 points that I would like to suggest. First and foremost is to challenge the concept of GDP. I think it is very important as a society, as a community, we need to stand up and say GDP is not the touchstone to development. In fact, if you do the other way around, as Nabul Haq used to say, that if you invest on poverty, if you invest on inequalities, reducing the inequalities, the GDP grows up. So I think there has to be clarity on this issue of what you can do by reforming GDP. The second part is that we must try to emphasize on the role agriculture can play. The future of this country lies in agriculture. If you try to destroy your agriculture, you go back into ship-to-mouth existence that was happening earlier, when food was coming directly from the ship into the hungry mouths. So that, I think, is the second challenge. How can Kerala bring in sustainable? You are a God's own country. I don't think God grows genetically modified crops. I don't think God grows endosulfan. I don't think God drinks Coca-Cola. So you have a challenge. You have to become the God's own country by bringing in a kind of agriculture and development model which is sustainable and economically viable, is something that I'd like to suggest to this house. The third and last is, ladies and gentlemen, please be aware of all these so-called investment paradigms. The model that we have been given to understand, and I would like to make a suggestion. Please read a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. Perkins actually lays out how they designed the model of foreign direct investment to hoodwink the developing countries to believe that it is a model of development or growth. I would suggest please take a look at that book. He as an economic hitman and explained to us very well. So when we talk of bringing Walmarts or supermarkets into Kerala, it is not a model of development which is going to sustain the country and sustain the economy of the state. Walmart is a failed model of development in America. I'd like to share this with you and then end. Walmart is believed that when Walmart comes into India or Tesco comes into India, it will help farmers get better income. It will also help consumers get better price. If it was so helpful, ladies and gentlemen, in America you have Walmart. In America you have future trading. The biggest commodity exchange is in Chicago. If all these were helping the farmers, please tell me, why is America pumping in 12.5 lakh crores to subsidize the farmers? Because that model is a failed model. So when you bring that model into India, you actually are going to push farmers out of agriculture, because wherever in the world supermarkets have been there, and I challenge the reports of the government, in every country where supermarkets have entered, it is an exit for farmers. Farmers have gone down. So if you want to destroy your farmer, destroy your economy, you can bring in Walmarts and be happy that you are shopping in a air-conditioned mall. But I think you have to look beyond. We are a country of retailers. How we can develop our own Indian model and link to our, as I said, to our own strengths. The cow, don't forget the cow. The cow is only a symbol of what exactly the strength we have got. We are a nation which is endowed with tremendous natural wealth. Look at your own problems and find the solutions within the country. We have a problem that we look at our problems and look at solutions in America. The solutions are not in America, the solutions are right across in your backyard. I think that's the development process which Solidarity, I'm sure, would like to suggest. And believe me, if you start that, the country gradually will start following you. The country needs a leadership in this, and young people can provide a leadership. The bigger challenge today is that we as a society have failed to ask the right questions. I remember some years back I was speaking at Johannesburg, Nelson Mandela chairing me. And Mandela said to me something which I can never forget. He said, the tragedy of 21st century is that we have lost our anger. He said, when I mean anger, I mean don't have to go and plant bombs. Anger is your ability to comprehend and stand up and ask a question. We have stopped asking questions. And if you have stopped asking questions, you will get the kind of governance, the kind of problems that you have. I think your ability to stand up and ask questions is the first step to rectifying what can be the new Kerala development policy. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.